We'll start with Ascended since he saw it before anyone else. What did you think of the movie?
Well, first of all, Han dies. I was kidding. So I saw it twice, one day after another. Okay, I'll give you an overall what I thought in the beginning. I loved it. It's literally everything I wanted this movie to be, and I've heard this from everyone quite a lot. They all say the same thing, that this is literally everything that they've ever wanted from this movie, and in general, it's a very nostalgia-heavy film. It's very well made, and I think it has taken John Watts from a director that I felt was doing good, and he's just kicked it up quite a bit. Um, so big props to him in the first place. It's really not easy to do. I'm gonna be honest. Doing a trilogy that has all had great films, I've enjoyed all of them personally. This is obviously my favorite one that he's done, and I think we can all agree that this is probably the best he's done. And if not, this is definitely one of the best Spider-Man films, just in general. Um, I think the way this film, compared to all of the other ones that, especially the one that John has done himself, um, is very cinematic. I've never seen him do anything this cinematic. In Far From Home, he had this whole thing of, remember like the fight scene in the end with the train and everything, reality warping around him. That was to me incredible what he had done. But what he did with this film, where it's so emotional, and I didn't think you could make a Spider-Man this emotional. You know, uh, Peter's relationship with Tony, as heartbreaking as it is in like Endgame or Infinity War, where he dies, and that was a heartbreaking story. But in this movie, how they play the story for him to grow up, how I personally feel like the way the story in this was done was the most character development that he has had in his entire MCU um, experience and his total lifetime in the MCU, right? And I think a partial reason is that he hasn't had someone with him in the entire film. Like in the other films, he had Tony, and then he had Mysterio somewhat, and Nick Fury. I think a big part of his development in this film, even though even Strange was there, the biggest reason I think he grew up and had to develop it on his own is because he had to do it on his own. And I think it was good that Sony was like, hey, let's split them up a bit. That's probably the best thing they did. And yeah, I think the music was incredible. The sets were incredible. The characters. I felt sometimes in there that thing wasn't as on point. It just felt like she was just going along with the scene rather than being in the scene. That's what I felt. But other than that, I genuinely feel like this was a 9 out of 10 film. And I'm not giving it a 10 because I'm sure there must have been something that out there that takes away from it from being a 10. Otherwise, I can't give it a 10 out of 10. But yeah, that's just generally what I thought. I think it's an incredible film. And if you haven't seen it yet, I think you are missing out on one of the greatest experiences. And if you can, please go watch it in a crowded room. Because when you watch it with a crowd, and I'll tell you, both times when I went with the crowd experience, that's what the cinematic experience is so great. The crowd being there and you being there in that crowd, that reaction you get is the cinematic experience. You want to be in that. So please go watch it at a good time where there's a crowd and enjoy it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I agree with all of your points, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's really not much I can say without spoiling anything, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into spoilers in a bit, but
yeah,
that was very well put without spoiling it. Rokan?
Well, I've seen it. I've seen the movie twice now. I actually, just came back from seeing it the second time. So the movie is once again still fresh in my mind. But what I can say just straight up is that as a longtime Spidey fan, ever since I watched the '90s and Fox Kids animated series when I was like 5 or 6, to reading the comic books and seeing the movies to now here we are. I felt like all of my Spidey dreams, all things I've wanted to see in a live action Spider-Man movie, it all came true. I could not be more happier with the way this turned out, the way they were able to put so many irons in this fire and still make it work, because Spider-Man movies, especially the third film in the Spider-Man trilogy, they have this tendency to throw a whole lot of stuff into it, and it'll come across as very cluttered and very inconsistent. I mean,
Yes.
that was always my issue with Spider-Man 3, was the fact that it felt like multiple Spider-Man 3 scripts were just thrown into one movie. And this was a case where it all surprisingly worked out extremely well. I never felt like it was cluttered. I never felt like there was too much. I felt like it was a well told, well acted type of story. I liked, I especially kind of liked seeing the complete. Oh, okay.
What's up?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey.
Pretty
Hey,
good,
Ken.
thanks. Yeah, so getting back into it, I felt like that that when it came to the Holland films, I've been kind of like indifferent to the Holland movies, just because there are things about them I do like. Like I like the Vulture and I like Mysterio in those movies. There are some things about this version of Spider-Man that until No Way Home I did not like. Like, look at you and say, I don't like that. Here, I felt like it had worked out in a way where I was like, okay, this I've been able to kind of like accept, or the fact that my problems with the Holland versions of this world right here actually got addressed. So I appreciate them for kind of like knowing, for seeing kind of like, some things that are really, I guess sloppy, and we'll get into them in spoiler talk, that were addressed right here and actually were improved. So long story short, it's my favorite of the Holland films. It's my favorite of the Holland films, and it's also one of my favorite, Spider-Man movies in general. I literally felt like I became that kid again. So that's the highest compliment you can make. And also to get into the sentence experience with it, yeah, seeing it with a full-on crowd made the experience even better, because I did something I've never done in any movie, in any, kind of like first showing of any movie I did. I literally got out of my seat and cheered. I never do that, man. I always just sit in my chair and I'll cheer. But I actually literally got out of my seat and cheered like I was at a concert or something. So that's never happened before until now. So that's always going to kind of like stick in my head in terms of unique cinematic experiences.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely agree. I'll
Sorry
say
to interrupt, Ken, but we're talking non-spoilers here, but
Right,
we'll talk
yeah.
spoilers later. So,
Okay.
what are your non-spoiler thoughts?
I loved it. I can't really say more than what he's already said, but it's one of the best theatrical experiences I've had in a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think look, firstly, I was not gonna watch Spider-Man 3 before all this was happening in this movie, because I did not like Far From Home at all. And I think that John Watts, before watching this movie, I think John Watts was doing Spider-Man an injustice and severely underplaying the character. And I did like Homecoming. I thought it was a cool movie, but obviously it was not the Spider-Man that we love, and it was not the Spider-Man that I wanted to see, or the Spider-Man that I was jiving with. And it was always Tony Stark, Uncle Ben, not Uncle Ben, and MCU stuff, going to space and all that stuff. So it was not something that I was liking very much. And that kind of amplified in Far From Home. And I just didn't like, how it played out, and I didn't like the some of the weird, ridiculous jokes in that movie. Mysterio was cool, and that illusion scene was great, but apart from that, the movie I just didn't like. So I was kind of tapped out, from the MCU Spider-Man franchise. But after knowing about what this movie is about, Doc Ock coming back, Jamie Foxx coming back, and all that stuff. Um, Seeing some of the rumors, that got me interested. And then I watched the movie. And let me tell you, I'm from India, right? And the crowd here,
What?
the
You're from Pakistan, bro.
the crowd here goes nuts over Avengers movies, and whenever scenes like Thor in Wakanda or Wonder Woman jumping in to save Batman in BVS, or Endgame where when Cap gets Mjolnir and all that, the crowd goes nuts because I see it on the first day, and the first day only the diehard fans go. So it's kind of like every single person in the theater is a fan, and they will cheer at every good scene, right? And
Mhm.
for now, before this movie, Endgame was the loudest I've heard the theater be, but this movie changed that, man. Like in this movie, without saying anything, almost in every scene, people were cheering. Like this is stuff from the trailers, but when Spider-Man meets Doctor Strange, or just the intro of the movie, or just showing Spider-Man, all those, even the little things, got so many cheers. And then the surprises came, and those obviously, the theater erupted like crazy. I've never heard that loud of a theater, to the point that was kind of getting annoying for me, because I usually like the cheers and stuff, but I only like it when it happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie, because obviously who wouldn't get excited when big scenes happen, right? But for
Mhm.
this movie, it was like for the entire film. And I do understand the excitement, but I also want to hear the dialogue and the music, right? So
Right.
yeah, it was kind of getting annoying at some point, but I only have seen this movie once, but I definitely want to see it again, and I loved it. I was very, very, very happy after seeing this movie. Um, it definitely exceeded expectations. And before we get into spoilers, I would also say this one thing. Like John Watts, I think I'm finally okay with him, and he did something with Tom's Spider-Man in this movie that made me feel that yes, he gets Spider-Man, and now this version of Spider-Man is Spider-Man to me. So I don't know how anyone can say that after this movie, that he's
Right.
not Spider-Man, because he definitely, even though there are so many surprises in this movie definitely had a story for Tom Spider-Man, and he had a full arc, start to end, and I loved that because the story should be about him, not about the fan service moments. Even though I love those, but the story shouldn't deviate from that. So, and it did not. So I like that. And yeah, I think we are done with our non-spoiler. Or Mar, do you want to say something?
Um, yeah, just one sec. I swear, we're
I
not
knew
one
you
non
were not
spoilers.
interested.
I just I'll just read my tweet from when I first seen the movie because I think that kind of gives a non spoiler review.
You don't trust
More.
yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I just looked at the polls. Like 30% of people haven't seen it. I'm like, what? I'm sure now it will probably
It's not released
they'll switch
everywhere.
after. Yeah, that's true. They'll probably switch after with the spoilers. But I love Spider-Man No Way Home. I thought it was better structured than the previous two films. Great heart and emotion. Most importantly, it respects the multiverse characters and past films of grace. John Watts nailed it. I'm so happy with how this film turned out. Thanks, Marvel. That's basically how I felt because yes, the film has problems and stuff like that, but I came out so happy and can't wait to rewatch this movie time and time again. And they were, as someone who grew up on Spider-Man movies, and they're bringing in multiverse characters like the villains and stuff like that. To respect them in the way they did was fantastic, especially after you watch maybe the Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney trilogy, and how they never respected those maybe the core fan base as well as they should have, in my opinion. When they brought those characters back, but I think here was much different. And, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think that like you brought up Star Wars, I like Marvel was able to use nostalgia in a way that serviced the plot, characters, and story, whereas Disney kind of did it, or Star Wars did it in a kind of soulless, just hey, remember that kind of way.
Don't even remind me of the Rise of Skywalker now.
Yeah, the member berries method, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.